Good morning, students. This is Professor Milan Mondal from the Department of English, Narajole Raj College. Today, we will be going through DSE 4 paper, and in that paper, we will be going through the partial literature. Under partial literature, there is a short story by Manik Bandopadhyay. The name of that short story is The Final Solution. Before going to the text, or rather detailed analysis of the text, we have to have some knowledge about the partition of Bengal. We all know that India was under British rule for more than 290 years, and after a relentless struggle, India got her independence in 1947. Though India got her independence, but it created one of the greatest tragedies in the lives of the people, because undivided Bengal was divided into two parts, Hindustan and Pakistan. And in most of the cases, this topic is discussed in history. Sometimes, though it is discussed in literature, this kind of literature only centers around the frontier provinces. But today, we will discuss regarding a short story which will tell the story of some people who were uprooted after the partition. You know that Manik Bandopadhyay is generally famous for his novels and short stories in Bengali. Today, we will be discussing his final solution, and in Bengali, which is named as Upai. Before going to the text, once again I want to quote a line from a Bengali poem by Mongolacharan Chattopadhyay. If we read that poem, we will find how pitiful the condition of the people was during and after the partition of Bengal. So, I quote, the poem is in Bengali. এসো দেখে যাও কুটি কুটি সংসার, স্টেশনের প্ল্যাটফর্মে ছড়ানো বেআব্রু সংসারে, স্বামী নেই গেল কোথায় তলিয়ে, ভেসে এসে আজ ঠেকেছে কোথায় ও যে, ছেঁড়া কানিটুকু কোমর জড়ানো আদুরি, ঘরের বউ আমার বাংলা. So in this poem, we can easily see how bad the condition of the people was during the partition era. Likewise, in the present story, Manik Bandopadhyay also portrays the same condition of a family which came into India from Pakistan just after the partition. And like any other short story, this short story also begins in media res. So, students, please now open your textbook. We will go through the text and then we will go through line by line discussion. Okay, open your text. Even a few days ago, one could see forlorn, dispossessed people spending their days and nights huddled together like herds of cattle and goats in the shelter of a railway platform. As I have already told you, the beginning of each and every short story is very important, and this is no different from any other short stories, because here the story starts abruptly and it gives us a hint regarding the situation of the people, or rather the uprooted people due to partition. It takes a platform as its setting, and in the platform here and there are so many people in scattered ways. Now you can question me, what is the reason? The answer is very simple. Actually, this is happened due to the partition of Bengal. Actually, the most important thing is that the short story writer or author, or rather the narrator, actually wants to convey that there was no difference in between animal and human beings. That's why he used such kind of words or such kind of phrases as huddled together like herds of cattle and goats in the shelter of a railway platform. So, human beings are just like, or were just like, or the condition of the human beings were just like animals. Now again come to the next part. Mollika's family had a place the length of a spread out mattress. Everything, everyone was squeezed in there. Mollika, her husband Bhushan, their 2.5-year-old son Khokon, and her widowed sister-in-law Asha. Tin suitcases, beddings, bundles, pots, and pans. So now we get the central character, Mollika. Actually, the poet, sorry, the narrator actually here gives a pictorial description of the pitiful plight of Mollika's family. Very interestingly enough, human beings are commodified here, because as if human beings are also juxtaposed, or rather human beings are in a status of commodities, because if we follow these lines, then we will find that there is no difference between the inanimate belongings of Mollika's family and his family members, because within a short space her family had to stay for a long time. That's why the difference between commodity, between inanimate object and human beings are erased somehow. That's why the narrator tells us, or writes, or the author writes rather, Mollika, her husband Bhushan, their 2.5-year-old son Khokon, and her widow sister-in-law Asha, tin suitcases, beddings, bundles, pots and pans. This is the clear indications that suitcases, pots, pans are no different things than that of human beings. That means human beings were also like inanimate commodities. Okay, now come to the next stanza, next paragraph, and before going to the next paragraph, so the setting in case of a short story is very important. So the narrator or the author actually very minutely has created the setting of this short story, and the setting of this short story is in a platform. Now come to the next part. Another day has dawned. Perhaps the sun has no option but to rise, chasing away the night's shadows, or else why would darkness give way to light in this cruel, ugly world? So this is the condition, this is the present plight of Mollika's family, because his family is suffering from starvation, suffering from the trauma of being rootless, etc. That's why the narrator vividly describes the condition as if the sun had no duty but to rise. That's why it had risen. Why? Because to Mollika and her family members, the breaking of a day means the starting of a new chapter of their suffering. That's why the narrator tells us as if the sun had no way, that's why it had risen. Today, Mollika's family had nothing to eat. The child had been whimpering since early morning. So, this is the condition of Mollika's family, and gradually the plight, gradually the miserable condition of the protagonist's family is being explored. Mollika had a son who is actually whimpering, not the word whimpering. Actually, whimper means to cry, and gradually, when one becomes tired, the crying stops. So, due to the lack of food, the condition of the child is like that. That means he has lost his strength to cry. It fell into a pattern as the day advanced. The drowsy child would start howling and then gradually tire and drop off again. So for a few days, it has become a pattern. It has become a routine life for Mollika. Throughout the description of a certain day, the narrator actually is describing the whole life of the protagonist's family. Why? Because in case of short story, the author or the writer tries to write based on a single incident, because Rabindranath Tagore in Bengali says, I quote the Bengali poem, ছোট প্রাণ ছোট ব্যথা ছোট ছোট দুঃখ কথা নিতান্তই সহজ সরল সহস্র বিস্মৃতি রাশি প্রত্যহ যেতেছে ভাসি তারই দু চারিটি অশ্রুজল নাহি বর্ণনার ছোটা ঘটনার ঘন ঘটা নাই তত্ত্ব নাই উপদেশ সাঙ্গ করি মনে হবে অন্তরে অতৃপ্তি রবে শেষ হয়ে হইল না শেষ. So the short story actually tells about a small incidents, but that reflects the macrocosmic world through its microcosm. Okay, so that's why by giving the description of that very day, the narrator or the author actually gives us a hint regarding the condition which was going on forever. The condition of Mollika's family which was going on for a long time. Now come to the text. I think it's clear to you. It fell in. Mollika looked up to find Pramotho accompanied by Ramlochan descend on their mattress kingdom. Very important. Descend on their mattress kingdom. Before coming to the discussion of mattress kingdom, I want to tell you something else actually. Then Mollika suddenly found Pramotho. So who is Pramotho? We will come to know that later, but I want to tell you one thing, that during this Partisa days there were so many chance seekers, actually there are so many pimps who used to seduce women and who used to make women go for prostitution. Pramotho was such kind of pimp, and he used to seek for chance. That's why he came there near Mollika. And very interestingly enough, the phrase mattresses kingdom. Why? Because to Mollika and her family, that mattress was the only kingdom. Why? Because being rootless, being homeless, they came to this platform. That's why there is no belonging left for them. Only that mattress is the only belonging. That's why it is mattress's kingdom, as if that short place is the kingdom for Mollika and her family members. Okay, now next, they belong to the help and welfare society that was aiding the refugees. Now, who is Promotho? Actually, I have already told you regarding Promotho, but he actually disguised himself as a representative of the helping groups. During Patisha, there were so many helping groups, but and Promotho actually used to represent himself as the representative of such a group that was aiding refugees. Asha covered her head, pulling the loose end of her sari close to her forehead. So, another character, Asha. Asha is Mollika's widow sister-in-law. That means Asha is Mollika's husband's sister. So, being a Bengali woman, Asha was very ashamed to show her face to the stranger. So that's why Asha covered her head, pulling the loose end of her sari close to her forehead. This is the Bengaliness in this short story, which is very much discernible throughout the whole over. Now, Bhushan's fever had remitted. He was dozing wrapped in the folds of a kantha and wasn't bothered by Promotho's appearance. Now, Bhushan, he is Mollika's husband. Very interestingly enough, though his name is Bhushan, but if we judge from the theme, from the angle of the theme of this short story, then that name is very ironical. Why? You know, in Bengali, Bhushan means ornament. So, though his name was Bhushan, Bhushan was no ornament for his family because he had no work, he was jobless. Though he was not so much guilty. Why? Because he lost his job due to partition. So, Bhushan had been suffering from, or Bhushan was suffering from fever since they came to that place. So, Bhushan was in general or in particular was suffering from or had been suffering from malaria. We will come to know that later. He was dozing wrapped in the fold of a kantha and wasn't bothered by Promotho's appearance. Bhushan was indifferent. Bhushan was indifferent to all this because he was jobless, because he could do nothing for his family. He could do nothing to stand by his family members. So he was indifferent. And Promotho, who was a chance seeker, who was finding his victims, quote unquote victims. Yes, I am using the word victim because as if Promotho can be compared to that of a python. who is searching for his victims. Why? Because he wanted to entrap the woman and send them in the profession of prostitution. So many had come and gone, men from societies, associations, and newspaper offices. It had made no difference to their lives. Yes, during the Patisha and after the Patisha, after the division of Bengal, so many people become uprooted and so many associations, societies actually assured them to support. But in reality, it was not possible. There are so many refugees, there were so many rootless people, so it was not possible to help anyone. That's why Mallika became actually annoyed with Promotho, but she had nothing to do. She had to bear away with such a pimp. Mallika and her family didn't rely on the government, but they had placed their faith on these men. They had continued to live on at the station, which was hell on earth. Very important, hell on earth. Mallika, being jobless, homeless, rootless, had to bear away with all such kind of mockery. And they were, that means Mallika and her family members were passing through a infernal life into earth. Why the life is compared to that of inferno? That means hell. Because we will come to later that life will become, or life would become really a hell for Mallika. Listen to me, actually, many women were seduced by so many pimps and they were forced to go for prostitution. So, though they were in earth, though the platform was in earth, as if it was like a earthly hell, because their condition was hellish, infernal. Yes, so that's why they, as if they were in hell, knowing fully well they were about to be turned out. Yes, there was no guarantee, because someday these people would be uprooted once again. So being uprooted, they came there, they came on that platform, and any day they might be uprooted once again from that platform. Now Promotho start conversing with, or Promotho started conversing with Mallika, because Promotho was searching, as I have already told you, for his quote unquote victim. Now, how is he now? The fever has remitted, but will rise again with all the shivering for sure. So, though Promotho is eagerly taking the news of Mallika's husband, but it's not his motive. Why? Because he was waiting for the moment when he would be successful to entrap Mallika in his own trap. That's why. And then out of courtesy, Mallika actually replied, yes, the fever is remitted. So it is a clear indication that Mallika's husband Bhushan was suffering from malaria. Yes, that's why the narrator writes, but will rise again with all shivering for sure. It was always Mallika who replied to Promotho's queries. In speech, attire, and denouement, Promotho appeared a middle-aged pater familias, which was why they resented his solicitations. So now comes the description of Promotho. As I have already told you, like any other short story, this short story also gradually exposes its character, the minimal character. Yes. So Promotho was a middle-aged familial person, but he was a pimp. The man had done nothing for them, although this was fourth time he had come to inquire after their well-being and demonstrate his concern. Yes, I have already told you that Promotho actually did not have any kind of intention to help the family, to stand by the family cordially. Actually, he was a chance seeker. He was searching for his victim. That's why the narrator writes, the storyteller writes, the author writes, it was fourth time Promotho came to there. But he did hardly anything for the family. Now they were on the verge of starvation. This is the grim reality of Mallika's family. After being homeless, after being rootless, or after coming to this platform, Mallika family or Mallika's family, Mallika and her family was passing through starvation. There was no food, there was lack of food, there was lack of milk for the baby, etc. So now you can understand how the pitiful condition was there of those rootless people. Mallika didn't mince words and bluntly said, "We are relying on you and you are doing nothing for us." When Mallika started reacting, now Mallika started reacting because he could understand that it was a false pretense for Promotho to help them. That's why she says that you, that means Promotho, you have come to us for so many times, but you have done nothing. We are really at sea. How many people can we take care of? Now, if you don't try to help yourselves, then now Promotho tried to justify his own words, or rather, Promotho tried to hide his pretense. Promotho tried to hide his failure. Then Promotho told Mallika that only Mallika herself could help her family. So this is the crux. This can be called the crux. Why? Promotho is waiting for the situation when Mallika would compel herself to go for prostitution. Yes. Promotho was waiting for that situation, that moment, that time. Help ourselves. Did you say, should we attempt to? If that is what is required, then I am ready to stand up straight and behave responsibility. That means if you read the Bengali version of this story, then you will find that here this line is translated as, or in original Bengali version, there is a slang which was used by Mallika. So now Mallika actually is expressing his wrath, her wrath, her grudge against Promotho, because she could well understand that Promotho is only making fun of their condition. Here I am throwing my hands about, dancing and screaming for attention. What further humiliation is left for us? Yes, then Mallika actually, in a tone of, or in a very pathetic tone, tells that there is nothing left which she could do. She had done everything what she could. But once again, we know that according to Promotho, Mallika has not done the best thing. Why? The thing which Promotho wanted. That means Promotho wanted to make Mallika a prostitute. Okay, understand? Her words carried a sharp string, but the agony of the helpless never finds a voice. Signs of anger, of humiliation never appear on their faces. Promotho found this manner of destitutes rather terrifying at first. That means it's very important that the agony of the helpless never finds a voice. That means one who is destitute, one who is suffering from destitute, from bad condition, who is passing through bad conditions, he or she could not or cannot raise his voice. Why? Because they have nothing to do. The circumstance has made them or makes them such. So, Promotho was also indifferent to such kind of bad remarks made by Mallika to him. Why? Because he was only waiting for the moment. He was only waiting for the quote unquote moment when he could be able to convince Mallika to go for prostitution. Yes.